And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live stream where we will be talking to two Hackbright Academy alumni who are amazing women who transitioned into technology and the tech industry, changed their careers. So please welcome Allie and Frances.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much, guys, for finding time for this. I would love, and I know my audience would really be curious to hear about your experience of, taking the leap, essentially, and going into this really, really interesting and super dynamic industry. So let's just start with, what are you guys doing right now? Who would like to start? Ali?
Sure, I can go.
Oh no, I think the connection is cut off.
Which is a cloud communications company. So if you've ever texted your Uber driver or your Lyft driver or maybe an Airbnb host, all of those messages were powered by the team that I work on at Twilio.
That's awesome. Sorry, the connection cut off a little bit. Do you, at the beginning, do you mind saying again what you do? We just heard from the Uber part, from the cloud.
Oh, so sorry. So I'm a software engineer on the messaging team at a cloud communications company called Twilio. So we power voice, video, and text messaging for many, many companies, including Uber and Lyft. So like I said, if you've ever texted or called your Uber driver or your Lyft driver or maybe your Airbnb host, those are all powered by Twilio and the team I work on.
That's awesome. That's very exciting. I mean, if your technology is touching everybody's life every day, that's just, oh my God, when you're able to work on that, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and what about you, Frances? What are you currently doing?
I'm currently a technical program manager at Chan Zuckerberg Initiative.
Nice. And what does the company do?
So CZI, we're a philanthropic organization. We have 3 different initiatives. Let me get some light in here. We have 3 different initiatives. We have science, education, and justice and opportunity. The team that I sit on is called Share Infrastructure, and we kind of just, actually just today, we open sourced a tool called Fog, which is a Terraform module that allows you to create AWS stuff. Essentially, there's a lot of stuff going on at CZI. This organization is truly positioned in a very unique position. It's nothing like the Bill Gates Foundation and things like that.
That's awesome. And if you guys don't mind me asking, what did you do before and what made you make this shift? Let's start with you, Frances.
So I graduated from college in 2016 as a business analytics major. And probably after about a month into the job hunt, well, no, I started job hunting before I graduated, but a month after being absolutely jobless and getting tons of rejections, I looked back into coding. I started coding when I was fairly young, back in like the MyExcite, Zanga, and MySpace page days. That's when I started picking up the book, The C Programming, and I started to look into various boot camps. I had a family member that graduated from Dev Bootcamp, and she was giving me rave reviews about Hackbright, about how it's like very woman orientated and how the alumni are very supportive of each other, which is something that I felt I really needed based on everything that I've heard and read on Reddit, on Hacker News, all the Medium posts. So when I joined Hackbright, I previously was like IT desktop support at my school. I did a 1-year internship with Broadcom as a program manager. So the tech space wasn't unfamiliar to me. So it was that like gentle transition from essentially business stats to coding.
Nice. Sometimes it sounds like an easy transition, but it definitely takes much more than that. And what about you, Addie? What did you do before, and what made you decide to make this shift?
Yeah, so before I joined Hackbright, I had spent 8 years or so in the nonprofit industry, primarily doing fundraising and event planning for education-focused nonprofits, which was hugely rewarding and super fun and really interesting. But I sort of reached a point in my career where I didn't feel like I was growing and learning and really feeling challenged anymore. And so I was kind of looking for that next thing. And I started talking to a lot of mentors and people around me to try to figure out what that might be. And one mentor in particular said, you should do Hackbright Academy. And I was like, whoa, that is very specific. But I started thinking about it, and I had a couple other ideas, but I kept coming back to the Hackbright one. And I had taken a CS course in college and I absolutely loved it. But it was my senior year and I was already on this track with my math degree. And so I was like, hey, maybe I should give this a try. So my husband was super smart and he was like, you should just code for 8 hours a day and see if you like it. Because I think one of my preconceived notions was that software engineers sit in front of a computer all day and they don't talk to anyone. And that's just not who I am. And so I did. I just sat down and I tried it and I absolutely loved it. I just like every single line of code that I was able to write effectively, and even debugging was like really exciting and really a fun challenge. And I thought I might be onto something. So I continued to teach myself and then applied to a couple boot camps and ultimately landed at Hackbright.
That's awesome. It's interesting how your mentor was just like very direct about where you should go.
Yeah, she is very involved in women in tech anyway. So I think that was kind of like, she's like, everyone should do this or everyone should give it a try. So I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you guys, had a career before and then you decided to just make this shift and transition into tech, which actually leads me to the next question, which is, was it an easy transition? How did it feel? Allie, do you want to start?
Sure. I think the best analogy is a roller coaster. Like there are like super huge highs and then there are like really deep down lows. So it was a true test of my will and my sense of self-worth and yeah, just like everything. So, but it was really fun and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I think, when I was first learning to code, tackling that first bug can be really challenging and something that you're like, what is this? And you're just missing a comma and you're like, why didn't I think of that? But I think at the same time, once you figure that out, the sense of satisfaction and the sort of gratification that you get from solving something or building something that started from nothing is pretty awesome and cool. And then throughout my job search, I think there are definitely a lot of lows. Whenever you hear a no, it can be really disappointing and you can take it really personally. And so I think my husband was a huge source of encouragement for me. And I think anyone who's going through this, I highly encourage you to have that like one person who you can go to and you're like, this really sucks. I'm not worth it. I can't do it. And that person will be like, no, you can do it. You're really good at this. You're meant to do this. And you should keep going. And I think that was a huge help in getting me through the process and ultimately to the job where I am now. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely helps when you have someone supporting you and encouraging you, especially when it comes to difficult processes like this. And Frances, what about you? What about your experience? How was the transition for you?
So like I mentioned earlier, I came straight out of college and went to Hackbright Academy. I think when I was attending Hackbright Academy, I didn't fit in with most of the demographics. I was a fresh college grad. I think I was the only fresh college grad. Everyone else had a couple years of industry experience, whether it's related to tech or they were in the the chem field teaching. So I just had this huge imposter syndrome that's looming over me the entire time where I just wasn't as good as everyone else in the class. I think what really what really helped, what really kind of like sparked that change that made the transition not easier, but I felt more supported, was being more open and talking about what I was going through, especially with my family. So, like how Allie mentioned, she had her husband through the entire time. For me, my support system was my family. This sucks all the time. And they would tell me, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. This company, did you really want to work for them? Like, even though they said no to you, but did you actually want to work for them? It caused me to kind of practice mindfulness more actively, rather than just when I meditate or when I do yoga. It's more like, this is the here and now. With every situation and challenge that comes along, be mindful of it. It has really inspired me and challenged me to grow more and more. And we can just kind of talk more about it a little bit later on. But the transition itself was not easy. A lot of it is that little voice in your head telling you no.
Well, you know what? You didn't listen to that voice and you powered through, which is amazing. And I can imagine it must be very intimidating as a recent grad, being in a room with people who have experience in other fields as well. But you know what? You did it and you got your job in tech, which is the main thing. And just before the next question, I wanted to tell everybody who's watching that I'm seeing your comments, guys. If you have any questions for Allie and Francis, please write them down. If we have some time, I will definitely ask them. And also, if you want to connect with Allie and Francis on LinkedIn, the link is in the description of the video. Awesome. So let's go ahead. And my next question is around Hackbright Academy and the bootcamp, well, the course that you chose. How did you find it, and what made you decide to do the program? What was your decision-making process? And let's start with Francis this time.
Okay. So I found Hackbright Academy from a family member who attended Dev Bootcamp, and she was telling me about all the great experiences of everyone that she's talked to and spoken to. She was an organizer at GDI at the time, and she connected me with a bunch of people. And it seemed like everyone's experience, whether it was the interview process, the coding challenge, to the instructors and the alumni community after graduating Hackbright, it all sounded very positive. And when I compared it side by side to what my needs are to make me happy and to make me successful, and also the other programs that are out there and like kind of the pro-con list of all of them, I was very drawn to Hackbright. I guess like the color red doesn't really help because, I love red. Even CZI is red, Broadcom is red. Every single company that I've ever worked at is red. So naturally, I was drawn to Hackbright. And the final push that made me go Hackbright is B1 was the way that I was treated throughout the whole interview process. Every single person that I talked to during that time, they were like, if you have any other questions, I can connect you with an alumni where you can ask any question you want without like having any boundaries. Like there's no end to what kind of questions you can ask, and they will answer their question as honestly as they can. And I thought that was just truly empowering, because everyone wants to present their best self. But when you have someone else come in and this person can advocate things like that, I think it's just amazing. So it just really attracted me to Hackbright.
That's awesome. Yeah, when people can answer your questions, you can really see that they're going to support you throughout this process, which, like you guys said, is not always easy. And Allie, what about you? You said that your mentor has directed you towards this this course, this program. What made you decide to actually do it?
Yeah, I think Francis actually hit a lot of my main bullet points. I have a very similar explanation. My mentor had mentioned going to Hackbright, but I didn't want to just like throw all my eggs in one basket. So I did do my due diligence and checked out a couple other boot camps, and ultimately got into 2 of them. but I decided on Hackbright because of this just amazing community of just kick-ass female software engineers. Like, where else are you going to find 400 to 500 of them that you have access to, and you can ask questions and you can sort of be a part of this community that's all going through the same thing, is really special and not something that I wanted to pass up. And I think also, like Francis mentioned, just the amount of support that Hackbright provides throughout the entire process, through like the application process, but then also when you're a part of the program, was really awesome. We all had an advisor. We all had 2 mentors. Actually, I had 3 mentors, 3 industry mentors who all were helping me and helping ensure that I was successful. And I still keep in touch with them today. And then all of the support that they provided throughout the job search process as well, I think was a really huge deal and not to be taken for granted, and not something that other programs necessarily provide at the same level. So I think it was just like checked all the boxes and more. And so ultimately landed at Hackbright.
That's awesome. And what about, okay, so you made that decision to transfer into tech. You found a course. You start the course. What was the learning process like? Was it difficult, and were there, some parts that actually surprised you by being quite easy? What was it like? Annie, would you like to start?
Sure. I think what surprised me and what I thought was really cool about it, and I'm sure this is true across all boot camps, but everyone was there for the same reason. We were all making this transition and making this really, we were making this decision to make this change in our lives. And so everyone was committed in a much different way than you might find at your undergrad or things like that. So I thought that was really special and sort of brought us all together, and really everyone was working really hard to get to this end goal, which I thought was amazing. And I think, so that was really special and awesome. I think, the hours were long. We worked a ton on our projects, and it's the same today, you'll have this one bug that eats away at you for 3 days, and you're like, oh my God, it was literally just this one comma, or I spelled something wrong, and you're like, how did I not see that? But I think going back to the last question, having this community of friends and people who are working toward the same goal is really important and special, and made it a lot more fun and something that you could laugh about versus just eating away at you and causing a ton of frustration. So yeah, so I think it was really hard, and we worked really hard, and we worked long hours, but I think at the end of the day, the friendships that I made and going through those things and understanding how to tackle them in the future made it all worth it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, I guess, back in university, or I went to a boarding school and we were doing, all these things together, and it really creates a different experience when you have people who are going through the same experience and who are trying to reach similar goals to you, and you really create this bond, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Francis, what about you? How was your learning experience? What were the challenges? What parts were easy? What was it? What was it like?
All right. So my learning experience might have been a little bit different. So while I was in college, I actually took a year of CS. I was actually a CS major for a year. There were quite a few things that happened that really made me turn away from the major, especially at that point of time, which is why I ended up graduating with business analytics. And then looking back at coding, I actually grew up in a household full of tech. My dad is in tech, so there were always these programming books laying around. My friends that I spoke to all the time, they were really into tech, whether it was electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. They were writing code themselves. So I was very inspired and surrounded by this environment for a long time. So I had already figured out at that point what was my best learning style in terms of how do I approach these problems? What do I need to think about and categorize them and like start tagging them in different ways? What was the most challenging was, again, the imposter syndrome that I was feeling the entire time. I felt like the curriculum was paced out very well. So when you first started, they tell you, okay, this is what we're going to teach you at what point in time. And since I was just so nervous about it, I actually started studying ahead of time. So by the time the lecture came around, it was more like a refresher for me. For those of you that have read the book, Why You Sleep, they talk about how your brain converts short-term memory to long-term memory through sleep. And when I was also comparing Hackbright to all the other schools, it's like these people, they work to like late hours into the night. How much of that is actually getting internalized and digested for later usage? Because sometimes it's not just about the problem that you're encountering here today, but it's the takeaway that you can take from this problem and apply it to other skills or do it the reverse way and things like that. That's what essentially coding challenges are. It's not like this is a brand new problem, but this is the same problem, but you're doing it the reverse, or you're doing it in like a different way, or we want you to think about this optimization. So that was like just extremely challenging and extremely easy parts of like my learning experience at Hackbright.
Thank you for recommending that book. I wrote it down while you were saying why you sleep or when you sleep.
Why People Sleep.
Why People Sleep. Okay.
Yeah. Let me
I will add it to my Amazon list after this. Thank you. But yeah, it's very interesting how so many factors can affect our experience, and yeah, transitioning into a field that you weren't necessarily in before is very difficult sometimes. Oh, thank you for sending the link. And my next question is about the job search. And I can see that in the chat, we're getting a lot of questions around how do you approach that job searching stage. So you've graduated or you're about to graduate. How do you approach the job search? This is, it's easier said than done. So what was your experience like? Francis, let's start with you.
So towards the end of Hackbright Academy, for my cohort, definitely there were a few people that were sponsored by their companies and they were going back for software engineering positions. So they were able to get interviews, get job opportunities, or the company that they came in with, they were like, for example, in a tech support job, they did Hackbright Academy and now they're transitioning to a software engineering position. And there's just tons of those scenarios around you, and Hackbright hasn't even finished yet. It made my sense of self-worth go down because everyone else was like getting a job. Like, why am I not getting a job? There were many different methods of like job tracking people talked about while we were there. Some people were like, I keep a spreadsheet. Some people, they created an app to help manage it, things like that. I felt all of that was extremely discouraging. So I stopped doing it after a couple weeks because I was getting no responses or a ton of rejections, even from companies that I wasn't interested in interviewing for. I just wanted to do it for interview experience. What ultimately helped was looking at Hacker News. Every month they have a monthly page of like job that you can apply to. Usually the hiring managers will leave their email in there so that you can email them directly. On Reddit. Reddit is a great source. Let me see. LinkedIn, and then the alumni community. And those have been the 4 places that I have found jobs, interviews, and simply like to connect people together. Sometimes I'll be interviewing for a position. I don't think it's a good fit, but you know what? You're looking for someone with like a more academic background. I actually have a peer that I think might be a good fit. And I have actually matched my peers with jobs that I interviewed for, but I didn't think I was a good fit for them. So that was kind of like my job search. I believe in like kind of passing on like good karma. So I felt like after passing all of these jobs around, people go, oh, Francis is looking for a job and I think this is something she might be interested in. Let me redirect you to her. And these connections between people are much more valuable than doing a random application on Glassdoor, LinkedIn. to a company's website, where your application goes to essentially a black hole until someone looks at it, or you have to pass a algorithm test or pass the like resume scanner. Just so many things, so many barriers you have to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's easier said than done, and your experience just illustrates that. I'm so happy that you ended up figuring it out. Everybody has their own path, and you did it, which is the main thing. And it's interesting how you're mentioning networking as one of a huge part of the process, because a lot of the times people think that when you work in tech, you need hard skills, but soft skills kind of take a backseat. No, no, you need networking and you need soft skills as well. And what about you, Allie? How did you approach this process during, while finishing your course or after graduation? What was your experience like?
Yeah, I ate up all the resources that Hackbright provided to us. So even throughout the course before we had graduated, our career services team did a really good job of keeping us structured. So by the time we graduated, we had, our resume ready to go, our LinkedIn was up to date, we had a mock cover letter, and I had a list of companies that I was interested in applying in. So I felt really confident kind of going into the job search with that in my back pocket. And I think the people in our cohort who are the most successful were the ones who went out and just started applying for jobs. And I kind of like what Francis was saying, girls were doing it even before they had graduated, which maybe is not the best. But even so, I think a lot of people still have that feeling oh, I'm not ready. Oh, I should keep studying. But it's Hackbright is 12 weeks long for a reason. If it needed to be 13 weeks, it would be 13 weeks. But, it's 12 weeks. They think that's how much you need to be prepared. And so you should feel prepared and maybe not apply to your dream job right away, but just start applying and start getting out there. And that's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're going to get the feedback that you need to be successful in the end. And so that's really what I did. And I highly structured my days. I had 2 hours for applying to jobs, 2 hours for practicing for upcoming interviews, 2 hours for just coding practice, and then 2 hours for networking and going to events and things like that. And then did also make time to exercise. I love to run and to meditate and things like that. So definitely doing a lot of self-care in the process, but I felt like that structure really helped initially. And then once I started getting a lot of interviews, it was much more focused on what's the job that I'm interviewing for and what do I need to dedicate time for to make that successful. Some other resources that Hackbright provided that I thought were really, really helpful, and I think that sort of at Hackbright or even regardless you could try to benefit from are they had whiteboarding sessions at companies. So we got to actually practice whiteboarding in front of engineers, which really helped give you a feel of what that experience would be like, and I think gave me a lot more confidence actually going into my whiteboarding. And so if you know any engineers that you can sort of hit up and be like, hey, can you practice with me? Or do you have other friends who would be willing to spend an hour doing a mock interview? I think that can be hugely helpful. And then the other one was at the end of our 12-week program, we had a demo night where we demoed the apps that we built during the second half of the program. And I met 2 companies that I ended up going into the late stages with. One of them was actually Twilio. So I think that was really amazing way to connect with different companies in a more intentional setting. And then that helped a lot of people find jobs pretty quickly as well.
That's awesome. I like how you structured your days. That is very, very, efficient. I will definitely have the same approach the next time I'm looking for something else. That's awesome. I love that. And it's also a combination of all these different things, right? Application, practicing your soft skills, practicing your hard skills, right? So it's always a 360 image. And because we are, close to running out of time, my last question for you guys is, what advice would you give for women who are looking to do the same what you guys did to transition into the tech industry, to this wonderful world of tech? Allie, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think I would recommend doing something similar to what I did when I got started. Just sit down and spend 8 hours coding, and if you like it, chances are you're onto something, So I think spending that time to really sit down and start teaching yourself can be like very, very valuable. So, and I think also just having fun with it, you know, I think trying to add curiosity to the equation so that when you hit a bug, you don't feel extremely frustrated and want to quit, but try to investigate why this is happening and what's going on, and try to have as much fun. And I think that showing that enthusiasm and that energy will really help when it comes to job interviewing and things like that in the end.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. All those things are very, very important. What about you, Frances? Do you have any tips?
I think that opportunities are going to be there for those who are ready. And sometimes being ready means being able to know what your voice is. What is your story? And being able to vocalize what it is that your needs and your wants are. How are you making progress towards that? And asking yourself, am I making progress toward that? Are you really making progress toward that? Sometimes you're sitting there. So I actually started as a software engineer. I'm sitting there for a couple hours just staring at a piece of code. It's not doing anything for me. My voice is lost. I'm just staring at a blank screen. There's no point staring at a screen for 3 hours. Go out, get some exercise, go talk to people, go find a mentor, go find a peer that's willing to work with you through a problem. Do anything. Don't lock yourself in. So find your voice and go talk to people.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was unbelievably helpful, and I hope that the audience has heard a lot of really, really interesting stuff, a lot of different tips and approaches to, well, basically the whole process of transitioning. And I know there were some questions around careers and job searching. Guys, if we haven't answered some of the stuff, don't worry, I will answer that later. Unfortunately, we're out of time right now. The ladies need to get back to work. We can't take all of their days. But yeah, thank you guys so much once again for finding time, and also Hackbright Academy, the engineering school for women, for supporting this video and other content on my YouTube channel, which you can definitely check out later. And if you're interested in that course, you can go into the description and find a link to find out more about Hackbright Academy's course. I know that they are about to start enrolling new students, so you are just on time if you're watching this video right now, not like half a year later. Although half a year later also will work. I'm sure they'll have a new cohort. Anyways, thank you guys so much. I had so much fun talking to you, and I will let you get back to work and get back to your busy days. And that applies to both my guests, Allie and Frances, and to my viewers. Thank you very much. Bye.